Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is the SoxProspects.com podcast. It is Monday night, June the 12th, night one of the MLB Draft of 2017. The Red Sox just won in a walk-off against the Phillies at Fenway, and the Red Sox have made two selections in the first round and second round of the 2017 Major League Baseball Draft. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of SoxProspects.com. Joining me, as always, is Ian Kundle, the director of scouting for SoxProspects.com. Abbreviated podcast for you tonight. We're going to cut out all the bells and whistles. Support us on Patreon.com. We want to send a shout-out to our $5 and up patrons who are, in no particular order, Sox Signatures, Jeff Trainer, Tyler Woodrow, Kyle Costigan, Gerardo Iantosca, Kirby Miller, Lendl Martin, and Cody Pimentel. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. We appreciate your support. Rate and review us. Follow us on Twitter at Sox Prospects. I'm at SP Chris Hatfield. Ian is at Ian Kundle, Cundall. Okay, I think that's everything out of the way early, Ian. With their two picks, first off, at pick number 24 of the first round, the Red Sox selected Tanner Houck, right-handed pitcher out of the University of Missouri. And in the second round, the Red Sox selected Cole Brannen. You'll have to bear with me. I have a bit of a cold. I apologize for that. I will keep my finger on the mute button. But Cole Brannen, a high school center fielder out of Georgia. Ian, I'll just kick it straight to you, man. Your thoughts on the first two picks of this year's draft?
I like what they did. I mean, at first, my initial reaction to the Houck pick was, oh, great, another college pitcher with kind of fringy back end upside. But doing a little more research, I think that he's definitely more interesting than that. And based on how the board fell, there wasn't any clear signability guy that fell after
Right.
Jaron Kendall got popped at 23.
Right.
So I kind of think that Houck was probably the highest guy available on their board, and from what it sounds like from when you did the conference call from Mike Ricker, he was someone that they identified early and wanted with the pick. So I like it. And then with Brennan, I mentioned on Twitter, but outfield, and we've talked about it in another podcast, the outfield depth in the system is atrocious.
Yeah, he immediately becomes.
He might be my number one outfield prospect
might be the top.
in the system.
Yeah, he probably is.
That's something that we can talk about a little later, but there's no outfield depth in the system, especially in the low minors. And again, it was a guy, there wasn't really anyone who stood out in terms of signability who had fallen. And I don't think they have a lot of money because I'm going to guess Houck gets pretty close to slot, maybe a little low or a little more. But so it wasn't like they could move a ton of money around with that pick. So
Right.
Brennan went right around where he was projected to go. And based on what I've read, obviously in the couple minutes of video of clips I've watched, I like the pick. He seems like an athletic guy. He can run. Looks like he can stick in center field. Good feel for hit. The power seems a little fringy, but he's got the makings of an interesting center field prospect. And again, in a system devoid of guys like that, he immediately shoots near the top of that list.
Yeah, there were some high school guys that did look like they were falling a little bit. Nick Allen, high school shortstop, was one guy that I noticed falling.
Quinton Holmes, who went right after, is another one.
Yeah, Blaine Enlow, high school right-handed pitcher, might have been another guy. But when you see guys like that falling and they're not getting picked, that's usually because the number is pretty high or something to that effect. So,
well, yeah, and I just don't see them being able to move enough money around to be able to take one of those guys who's going to ask for a huge number. So I think they just kind of went with best available player given our financial constraints.
Sure, and I think at the same time they also what was the point I was going to make? I'm clearly messed up on cough syrup right now. Yeah, they also are. I know the point I was going to make. It's not like last year when they drafted Jason Groom, and it was like, okay, they're going to need to move the rest of the draft around in order to sign him because he's going to take over slot. Like you said, Houck's not going to take over slot. Let's talk a little bit about Houck. Houck, right-handed pitcher, low three-quarters arm slot. Ian, one of the things that first thing I noticed watching video of him, I think there's going to be some cleanup needed in his mechanics. It's a funky looking little arm motion, arm action. Is it a stab behind with a high elbow as it comes up, and then he comes across three quarters?
He crossfires it. It's low. it's not an arm slot, you'd usually see taken in the first round, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's got stuff. I mean, the fastball, I think Mike Rickard said it was up to 97, sits in like the low to mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a power sinking fastball, gets a lot of swing and misses and weak contact on the ground when he keeps it down. And it seems like the question mark comes with the secondary stuff. The slider seems to be some outings that looks pretty good, others it's pretty bad. And the changeup, it's a tough arm slot for a changeup. It's kind of the arm slot looks on video kind of similar to Mike Schwarn's from last year's draft. And
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and something that you can have some trouble with the changeup from that arm slot, especially against and you're going to need a changeup against lefties. So looks like he's got to work on his secondary stuff. But I mean, when you're picking at the back end of the first round, that's kind of what you expect. You're not going to get a polished product there with 3+ pitches or anything like that.
No, if a guy's got 3 pitches that you're picking there, he has no control. I mean,
exactly.
Or his arm's going to fall off,
or he's like 5'10" or something,
or he killed someone, or
No, let's not go there. That's a little morbid. But I like the frame. 6'5", 220. Good size for a pitcher. That's workhorse type build. Excuse me. He's got pedigree. I mean, he was a Team USA guy, and we know how they love their Team USA guys.
They
pitched
do.
in the SEC at the top of a rotation, so he's been tested at the college level.
I always
Missouri's
forget that Missouri's in the SEC now.
Yeah, except Missouri's not really one of the premier SEC programs, I don't think. But still, he's facing high-end competition.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it's what was the comparison I saw? I think Scherzer went to Missouri, right?
Yeah. Scherzer. They've got some good pitchers. Scherzer, Aaron Crow, who was I think the first overall pick by the Royals. I want to say one year.
And then Kyle. Yeah, maybe.
And then Kyle Gibson, who went to the Twins, obviously. So, I mean, based on where they were picking, and I was just doing a quick overview again of the draft board to see, there wasn't really anyone, who stood out as the clear, oh, well, they're going to regret passing on him or anything. And Houck was one of the guys they'd been mocked to a lot. It was kind of him and Seth Romero. Mm. And I'm going to guess Seth Romero is going to want more money based on where he should have gone, even though I'm not sure how much leverage he has.
Romero wound up going the pick after to the Nationals.
Yeah. So, I mean, based on everything, all those factors, and the fact that I get to see him in Lowell, I'm a fan of the pick.
There you go. Yeah. I guess the other question that comes up is he the number 4 prospect in the system now? We've had a lot of talk on here, and if you don't know what we're talking about, check out past episodes. But there's a clear top 3 in the system. I think we agree that you're not going to push Houck ahead of Sam Travis at number 3. The question is whether he's number 4 right now. Right now, our number 4 is Josh Ockamy. I was talking to you, I think it was today or yesterday via text, and said I don't think Ockамy's my number 4 anymore, even though he was.
He wasn't my number 4, so.
Right. I don't know that I would put Houck at number 4, but I think he's very clearly in the conversation, and he's very clearly in that group of 4.5 projections of Josh Ockamy, C.J. Chatham, Travis Lakins, Michael Chavis, Bobby Dahlbeck, Brian Johnson in some order. I think he's very clearly in that class.
Yeah, I mean, I would like, obviously, I'd prefer to be able to see him before we rank him, but obviously that's not going to happen. So
no.
Based on just what I've read in the video I've watched, I would put him ahead of Travis Lakins, who we have at 6.
Yep.
Comfortably.
Yep.
And I would take him ahead of Chatham also. And so for me, it comes down to that group of Ockamy and Chavis, because I would have Chavis ahead of both those guys again.
I do now as well.
And I'd probably go with the pitcher.
Really?
Yeah, because I still have concerns about Chavis's defense, and similarly Ockamy, the first base profile. And if Houck can develop into like a number 3, number 4 starter, they just don't have any of those in the system right now, really, other than Jason Groom.
But that doesn't push him higher for me.
No. But I think that what I was trying to get at is that's the type of player that I would rank in based on the guys ahead of them at a number 4, number 5 spot in the system right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
a guy who projects as a 3 or a 4, I would put near in the top 5 is what I'm trying to say. So I would probably get it across right. But
I agree with you. It's 4, 5, 6 right now for me is some combination of Ockamy, Houck, Chavis. I'm probably inclined to go Chavis, Houck, Ockamy right now, just because of the damage that Chavis is doing at the plate. I mean, it's June 13th. It's June 13th, and he broke the Salem record for home runs at home
in a season.
And
he's played 25 games there.
Yeah, and he missed 2 weeks or 3 weeks with an injury. was only DHing for 3 weeks, so that maybe that's an advantage, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, I'm starting to buy in. He's starting to play third base more. You got to think that Chavis goes up to Portland at some point soon, and he'll get to start working with Carlos Fables, who the Red Sox really like as an infield instructor. So,
yeah, and I just talked to someone who saw Salem yesterday, and they spoke much more glowingly of Chavis than they have in past seasons.
Interesting.
So
it's at the point where you can't ignore the numbers, frankly.
No, and obviously I'm not a big stats guy, but it's more not necessarily the power. It's more that he's cut down the strikeout rate. That it's better quality at bats, and obviously the power is a huge bonus, but it's more that he's hitting now. And,
I'm not sure how this is true, but on our front page we have that Chavis is only 2 at bats behind Ockamy.
I don't think that's accurate.
Actually,
no, it could be accurate because Ockamy has a ton of walks. He has a ton of walks.
Yeah, Ockhamy's walked 37 times. The Chavis is 18. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That was really confusing for me, but that makes much more sense.
But I still think that Chavis has some question marks. I mean, the defense is obviously the biggest one. So, but I think, Houck falls right in that range. And there's another guy who's kind of a wild card who we've talked about also who might push his way into that discussion by the end of the season. That's Brian Mata, but we could probably talk more about him on another episode.
Probably, and I'd also throw Daniel Flores, assuming that they sign him.
Yeah, we'll have to reevaluate Jai too. I mean, it's good though, as the system has been so breadth of talent, has been kind of stripped over these past 2 off seasons that getting some guys between the draft and the July 2, it looks like they're going to be able to, at least start to reassemble the depth of the low minors, which is a very needed thing, especially with the trade deadline coming up and the big league team looking like it has some holes that need to be filled.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today, actually, and it really does seem like it's the start of a process now. You look at, they have that top 3. The only really young one there at this point now is Groom, because you got to think Devers is going to make his debut this year at the rate we're going. It looks like they're about ready to give up on Pablo Sandoval, but they're not quite there. And once if Sam Travis goes back up, I think
Travis is up for good at some point this summer too.
Yeah, I could see it.
And I guess we should mention with Groom, it did come out today that it looks like he's going to be. He's been pitching in the Gulf Coast or in the extended spring training, and it looks like he's going to go to Lowell to start the spinner season next week. So,
which makes sense.
Yeah, ramp him back up with just a couple starts there. And,
right.
I mean, I'm not going to complain because that means I'll get to see him. So
I like it. I like it a lot.
So should we talk about Brett? Or did Mike Rickard have anything else to say about Houck that you thought was pretty interesting?
Oh, yeah. I should mention that. So let's see. Rickard said, they think that Houck's going to be a starter. We should probably mention that the MLB Network broadcast basically destroyed the pick. They said that Dan O'Dowd was on there saying that...
did he call him a reliever?
Yeah, he called him a reliever. And and Rickard specifically got asked, basically, is he a starter for you? And he said, yeah, we think he can start, absolutely.
You don't
take the guy there if you think he's a reliever, unless you think he's going to be a reliever for you in a month in the majors.
Like Craig Hansen back in, what was that, 2007 or something?
But they think he'd be a starter. They said they had the sinker up to 97. He liked the athleticism that Houck had, as well as the deception to his delivery.
Yeah, it's definitely deception.
Yeah, he praised the fact that he had performed in a top conference like we talked about, but they do feel that he has things he can polish up. Very clearly, the changeup and the slider being two pretty obvious ones. And Alex Spear asked Houck about the slider and the changeup, and he said, yeah, those are 2 things that I feel I can work on. He also, Alex asked him how he felt about how his season went. And Houck said, I set high expectations for myself. Nobody expects more out of me than myself. And, I didn't feel this year went up to my standards. And I didn't throw as well as I could have. So I
respect that.
He owned it. Good for him, man.
I like that. Accountability.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It was really nice to hear. Because you figure he could very easily say, I had some really bad luck. Or, just...
There are a lot of bad ways to answer that question. And
yes.
That's probably the best. That is the best way.
He took it head on. Yeah, good for him. But yeah, they're definitely going to develop him as a starter. Rickard, the one thing he kept going back to is how rare it is to have a college player who had some success there, but also has room for growth. So that's what they really liked about him. Yeah, So, and then the interesting thing too, they asked about. He was asked about what pitchers he had enjoyed
Houck
watching.
Was asked, right?
Houck was asked, yes, not Rickard. And Houck said, being a Missouri guy, he had, enjoyed watching Adam Wainwright. And he also mentioned Chris Sale as kind of a lefty who had a similar sort of low three-quarters delivery, maybe an unconventional delivery that he liked seeing. So,
well, a lot of people say Chris Sale was a reliever coming out of college, so.
Well, and another guy that I think of too watching him was Justin Masterson, who everyone said was going to be a reliever.
Got a couple of years starting.
Had a few years starting, yeah. And actually, that's probably a good way. This is probably a good way to transition into Cole Brannen, the second-round pick out of Georgia, a high school kid out of Georgia. Been a nice little run here for Georgia high schoolers.
Especially outfielders.
Few years, yeah, especially outfielders. And Rickard on Brannen, he says that he's going to stay in center field to start. They like a lot about his approach, his swing. They've been able to see him a lot on the summer showcase circuit. They do think he's got some power projection, and he's got a well above average run tool. Seems like a real athlete. I would presume. Well, yeah. I mean, my guess is he'll go to the Gulf Coast League when he signs. He has. Brannen has said he is 110% going to sign. That's a quote from him. So even though he's a high school guy, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any issues with him. I don't even know where his commitment is to.
Georgia Southern, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. He's going pro.
Yeah.
Especially as a second-round pick. I also didn't realize until I saw it tonight, the Red Sox pick at number 63 where they took Brannen was the first pick with a cap under $1 million.
Yeah, it was like 99933 or something.
Something crazy like that. Yeah, I don't know how they do those, but I'm going to go ahead and say Ian, a top outfield prospect in the system, unless you want to try and count Nick Longy as an outfielder, in which case it might be a discussion. But
no, I think he's the top outfield prospect in the system. I mean, it's just true outfielders. It's Neri Tavares, and I would take Brannen's upside over Tavares.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's clear unless you want to call Longy an outfielder, which they haven't used him as that, so I'm not going to. Texting with Mike Andrews earlier, Mike said he thinks, depending on how the rest of the rankings shake out, Ian, Brannen's like in the 15 to 19 range.
Let me bring them up right quickly. I probably should have had them up. I would put him...
Well, so right now we've got... Okay, so...
I would put him like 15.
Okay, so I would say he's clearly not top 13. Number 14 is Darwinzon Hernandez, who apparently...
I think that's the area for him.
Apparently left his start tonight.
Did he get hurt again tonight?
After a collision at the plate, yeah.
Oh, dear.
Someone tweeted at me from the game.
Oh,
Jalen Beeks is at 15. Ronio Raudes is at 16. And the top 20 is rounded out by Ben Taylor and Nuri Tavares, Jamie Callahan, Steven Nagosic.
I would take him over all those guys.
I would too.
14 to 16 range. I'd have to think about it a little more. But
I'd probably go 17 just to be conservative to start.
Yeah.
Put him behind the Hernandez, Beeks, Raudes, just based on, they're in full season ball and have had some kind of performance in full season ball.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to think about it, but
yeah,
I think that range is pretty fair, and I think that it's pretty. I would not put him in the top 13, but yeah, I think that the 13 to 16 range is pretty fair, and the list starts to get a lot nicer. When we're pushing, if you guys move down a couple slots because of these two guys, and then the international guys coming in, it starts to look a lot, more like what you'd expect the system to look like depth-wise.
Right. And
with Brannen, I'm a big advocate of taking up-the-middle athletes, whether it be, internationally or in the draft, and he sounds like that's what they see him as, MLB Pipeline has him as a 70 runner. Looks like he can play plus defense in center field, should be able to stick there.
They had him well above average on the call, but I also don't know that Rickard's necessarily going to use plus in that setting, so...
Yeah. So, and then he seems like he's got decent on-base skills. He's got some feel for hit and maybe some potential power. And so, I mean, I think there's upside and, good frame, 6'1", 185, left-handed hitter. So, yeah, I like the pick, and I think it, it fits with based on what they took in the first round with the college arm. I like going down to the high school ranks and getting a hitter with their second pick. And I based on what you said, it doesn't sound like he's going to cost, any over slot. If not, maybe they even cut a deal with him for a little bit under. So
Mike actually suggested the same thing based on the 110% signing comment. I mean, it seems like by making that comment, he's leverage is kind of out the window, right?
Yeah, and slot's 946. I could see him getting like 850 or something.
Yeah,
and maybe you've pushed that down because I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know if you want to transition a little bit just tomorrow, just a brief discussion, but since they don't have to move money around for their top pick, most likely, it's going to be interesting to see what strategy they employ with the 3 through 10 picks. Because you look at last year, I mean, even the last couple of years, they basically just taken senior signs with one overslot guy. Mm-hmm. But this year they don't have that overslot guy yet, so it'll be interesting to see if they do pop one later. And in like the 3rd or through the 5th rounds, and still employ with rounds like 7, 8, 9, and 10, or if they just go pretty much close to slot for the rest of the top 10 picks. So we have to watch tomorrow.
Perfect Game USA just tweeted, by the way, that Brannen ran a 6:18.60.
That's like 80 speed then.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also that's
probably a fast track or something. I don't know if it was like the Minneapolis showcase or something, but yeah, that's
I'm watching the video right now, and
where is it? Is it the?
I just retweeted it. Nice flow, and it's at JetBlue Park. So
is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's actually not really a fast track.
He's running his 60 with sunglasses on and his hair waving in the wind, and it's wonderful.
I respect that.
I like him already. All right.
We'll see him in Instructs, so.
Yeah, we will see him in Instructs. I can't imagine he goes to Lowell, right?
No, I doubt it.
Maybe he goes for like the cup of coffee or something at like the end of the year if they make the playoffs or something like that.
Yeah. I think we see a fair amount of college guys tomorrow too, though, because that Lowell roster is very thin right now.
Right. Yeah, I think we will too. That's a good point. That's a very good point. All right, I think that's about it. And
short and sweet.
We actually did a short podcast.
Well, it's because you're old and you need to go to bed.
It's because I'm old and I need to go to bed, and I'm the one that has to produce this. So no music or anything.
You're being a capital J journo today, so it's understandable.
Fair enough. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week. May not be Monday. We will try. But follow me on Twitter, and I'll have updates for you there regarding our draft recap episode with another guest. Not JJ Cooper this time, but a friend of the show. So thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back at you soon.